From here starts the speaking test. This is the speaking mock test of the International English Language Testing System taking place online in Ross IELTS Academy. The candidate is Amir. The candidate number is 01313458. The examiner is Luisa Meinusch, examiner number 443533. Good evening, my name is Luisa. Would you please tell me your full name?
Hi, my name is Amir Hossein Moini.
And can I see your identification, please?
Here you go.
Okay, thank you. Then we can get started with part one now.
Great.
In the first part of the exam, I will ask you some personal questions. Let's talk about friends. Do you prefer to stay alone or with friends?
It depends on what I'm doing. For example, if I want to watch a movie, I would personally prefer to be alone and just, take the movie as it is, not have any friends bothering me or talking to me while I'm watching the movie. But if it's an activity that we can all do together and it's impacted by how many friends or how many people you have around, I much rather have my friends next to me and near me so we can enjoy this experience together. For example, if you're playing a game,
Thank you.
playing an online game.
Okay. What do you like doing most with your friends?
I like playing video games the most with my friends. Anything from story-driven games that we can play co-op, or maybe an online game like an online shooter or something like that we can all experience together. It needs our support and our cooperative mode together.
Okay, thank you. Do you usually see your friends during weekdays or on weekends?
I don't usually see them. We usually talk to each other on Discord or on a call. But when I occasionally see them and go out with them, it's most of the time during the weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay. I don't usually go out on weekends.
All right. Now let's move on to talk about stars. Do you like to watch the sky?
Yes, I really do like watching the skies and watching the stars whenever the sky is clear and there's no pollution and air pollution in the air. But whenever the stars are visible, I like to count them sometimes. I like to see how many we can see right now in the skies. Some of the stars are known, and I like to remember the names. I like to see what the star is.
So what is the sky like in your hometown at nights?
At nights, my hometown, the sky is really beautiful. The moon shines very bright onto the streets. There are not many clouds usually on the sky, so the sky is usually visible. I can see everything.
Now let's move on to talk about your house. Who do you live with?
I live with my parents and my brother. I have a 14-year-old brother who I live with, but we live in separate rooms. So my father and mother live in a room, and my brother and I live in separate rooms.
How long have you lived there?
On this house in particular, I've been lived for almost 10 years now. We moved here almost 10 years ago, and we've been living here ever since.
Mm-hmm. And which part of your home do you like the most?
My room. I pretty much love my room the most, and the kitchen, because the fridge is located there. I love to go and eat whatever I can, whenever I can. So these are my favorite spots in my house.
And what does your room look like?
My room, there's a bed located in my room where I sleep, and I have some furniture which look like wood, but mostly are not wood, just colored like wood. I have a desk, I have some closets that I store my clothes in, and some additional items that I don't usually need.
Do you have a favorite place within your house?
Yes, my room is my favorite place within my house.
All right. Okay, so that's it for part one now. We can move on to part two. So in part two, I will give you a card with a topic, and then you will have to talk about the topic for 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you may take some notes to help if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes.
Great. Then I will share my screen with you so you can see your cue card. Okay, so you should describe a time when you got close to wild animals. Your 1 minute of preparation starts now. Okay, so your 1 minute is over. You may start speaking now.
Okay. The only time that I can say I got close to wild animals was about 10 years ago when I was 14 years old. Uh, it was in a zoo on my hometown, and I saw some bears. Then the bears were just sitting there miserably. They had nothing to do, no place to roam around, no green, grass beneath them. There was just rocks. Some two bears sitting on rocks, nothing to eat, nothing to do, no toys even to play with, no tires, no anything. So they were just sitting there. People like us were just going by. We saw the bears, and there was nothing even we could do to the bears because they were so far away. I was at the time eating some popcorns, and my mother was holding the chips. Although they told us not to give them food and not to throw them any food, I tried to throw some of my chips and my popcorns at the bears, and they just didn't react at all. I don't know what would they do all day there because, as I said, there's nothing there for them to do. Besides some bears, there was a giraffe and there was an elephant in the zoo as well that caught my eye really well as well. The only thing we actually could do with any of the animals was feeding apples to that elephant. There was a guy that was an expert there that taught us how we can do it, how we can get close to that elephant, then reach out with an apple, and the elephant would just take the apple and shove it in his mouth and would just eat it. And should I continue or?
Yes, please.
Okay. And there was a giraffe, as I mentioned as well. The giraffe was alone; it didn't have any, partners, and there wasn't any second giraffes. There was only one giraffe in a big container, and because the giraffes are very tall, they would feed him from above. They would feed him some leaves, feed him some food from above. There was a big ladder. People would go up there and feed into his cage some leaves, some grass, something that giraffes eat.
Okay,
And
thank you. That's your 2 minutes. All right. So now that was it for part two. Now we can move on to part three. So in part two, you talked about a time when you got close to wild animals.
yes.
Now in this part, I want to ask you some questions that are related to this topic. Why are people keen on keeping pets?
Some people are lonely, and the only reason they keep pets is to have company. Some pets, like cats and dogs, require attention, so people get distracted from maybe having nothing to do or maybe having some hard times and, being through something. So they take care of something like a pet to just, use their time and be active.
What are the differences between the animals in zoos and those in the wild?
Animals in the zoo are usually contained. They cannot harm each other or the persons that are watching them. But animals in the wild, they are wild. They have some instincts that they need to hunt because they've been taught so, and they have instincts to eat everything they find. Like, for example, if you're talking about lions in the cage, they don't eat everything that they find. They eat specific foods that the zookeepers decide for them and feed them every time of the day. So they know what they need to eat. But the lions in the wild, they eat whatever animal, whatever type of meat they can find to just survive.
All right. Why should the staffs in zoos teach the public about animals?
The most important thing is not to bother the animals. The staff should teach everybody to be respectful, not throw any food as I did into the cage, and don't make noise, don't bang on the cage, don't bang on the glass. Be respectful. Watch the animals as you wish, just because you paid so, and just move on. Move on to the next one. Don't bother the animal.
So is it important to preserve wildlife?
I think it's not important. I think preserving wildlife, as we know, it is not really important. I think letting them be the way they are is really the most important thing. We just don't have to keep them in a cage or just hold them for our amusements.
So what's the impact of population growth on wildlife?
When we capture them in a zoo,
I will repeat the question. What's the impact of population growth on wildlife?
oh, okay. population, when we grow as a species, like when humankind grows, we are bigger, we are more people, so we need more space. So what we do, we tear down the jungles, we tear down the trees and make roads, make more buildings, and destroy the animals' home. And when we do that, they don't have any place to live, so they just roam around and most probably get killed or die out of hunger. So while we grow as a species, they might decrease, and their species might decrease, and they might die off, and they might be endangered and wiped out completely.
And what are some measures that we could take to prevent that?
Some measures that we can take to prevent that, maybe we could not destroy the jungles. There's some part of the earth that are still untouched, and there are not that many animals living there. Maybe move the animals to a jungle or maybe to another place that they can live before we actually tear the place down and build our stuff there.
Mm-hmm. So how does wildlife conservation benefit humans?
When it comes to wildlife, what do you mean how it benefits humans? Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How does wildlife conservation benefit humans?
I'm sorry, I don't know what conservation means, I think.
Okay, I can rephrase the question.
Yes, good.
How can it benefit humans if we preserve wildlife?
If we preserve wildlife, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit nervous. If we preserve wildlife, so it means we collect them, right? We put them in the zoos and stuff. If we do that and preserve the wildlife, it's really bad. I mean, it doesn't really benefit us as humankind, because if we are preserving them and collecting them in a zoo, keeping them, the only thing that we earn from that is amusement. But if you're keeping the animals away, and like pandas, we are keeping them pandas away in the zoo, and investigating them, we are careful of them, we are watching for them, and so they don't go endangered, they don't go extinct. So we keep them in a contained place so we can grow them and help them not go extinct.
Okay, thank you. This is the end of your test now. You can sit back and relax for a second.
Oh, God.
I will need 1 or 2 minutes to add up your overall score, and then I'll be right back with you. I'll mute myself for that. I'll be right back with you, and then we can talk about your feedback. All right?
Gotcha.
Hello everybody! Do you want to know what band score you will get in your IELTS writing? Do you also need to know how to improve your writing skills for the real test? We've got the solution for you in Ross IELTS Academy. Send us your writings. We'll check them out thoroughly in less than 36 hours. You'll get the band score along with comprehensive feedback in both written and video formats. It's your time to become our next successful candidates.
All right. Now we're good to go. Let's see how you did.
Oh God, I just Googled preserve, and I know I answered 2 questions completely wrong.
That's okay. I mean, you still kept talking. That's a good thing. So before we dive into the criteria, I just want to give you a general idea about the parts, right?
Okay.
So as you might have heard before, your part 1 is about personal questions and rather more or less short answers, 3 to 4 sentences, depending on how long they are. You don't need to dive into too much detail in your part 1. Just give your solid answer, and then you're good. So some of your answers were maybe a little bit too long. Just try to stick to the basic information, and then I think you're good to go.
Okay.
Then your part 2 is all about talking at length, right? You need to cover the full 2 minutes. So you're basically talking until the examiner interrupts you. And you're also supposed to cover the full all the bullet points that you see, right? So be sure to do so. You did ask me if you should keep going, and you did. However,
yes.
Just keep going by yourself, right, until you're interrupted. Okay, and then in part 3, it's a lot about your coherence, right? It's supposed to be more of a discussion, kind of longer answers, developing your ideas and connecting them, kind of, which you did pretty well. So good job there. Okay, so let's go to your criteria. So your first one is your fluency and coherence, then comes your lexical resource, your grammar and accuracy, and lastly, your pronunciation. So I'm going to start with your fluency and coherence. So I think generally you have a very good command of your English. You have lots of ideas that you can talk about. You keep up your flow effortlessly. So like that's very nice. The only thing that I would have to say impacts pretty much all of your criteria is your speed, right? You're talking very fast. That might
Yes.
be because you're nervous and because you're stressed.
No, no, it's not like that. I've been told that many times. I don't know, for some reason, I'm just a fast speaker.
Okay, yeah, I can relate to that. I am in my mother tongue as well, but just especially in your IELTS test, try to slow down, right? Because just like that, you can avoid some of those little tiny mistakes that you're still making and maybe boost your score with that, right? So try to slow down a little bit. Remind yourself of that before you start talking, and I think then you're good. Okay, and then again for your answers, part one, a little bit shorter. Part two, stick to your 2 minutes, right? Be sure to cover all the bullet points before the 2 minutes are over, and keep talking until you're interrupted. That's the safest way to go, to know that you covered your full 2 minutes and everything that you're required to do, because this is the specific IELTS structure that you need to follow in order to get where you want to be. Okay, so I think generally you did have like nice discourse markers and connectors that you used, things like besides, even though, however, so you had nice variety in there. So definitely keep that up, because it's very important that you don't just repeat all your linking words, for example, right? Mix them up here and there. Then, and I think in some answers you had a little bit of hesitation because we're looking for things to say, because you were talking so fast that you ran out of ideas after like 2 sentences. I felt like that, so in this case, again, slow down, use some fillers here and there, maybe, things like, actually, I think, I believe, things like that, to fill those little gaps or those little pauses that you still have. And yeah, I mean, if you're running out of ideas to talk about things, you can always give examples or give more details about the situation or whatever you're talking about right now. Or you can go off topic, right? As long as you refer to the question somehow, you can go off topic and talk about something that you maybe have more information about, or that you maybe know better vocabulary about, right? So those are some techniques that you can follow to keep talking and not run out of ideas too quickly. Okay, so I think your main obstacle for yourself here in your fluency is your speed, because you tend to run out of ideas and tend to, I don't know, like maybe stumble over your own thoughts a little bit. And that's why for today, I would give you a 7.
Overall?
Fluency, but I'm pretty sure that you can
fluency.
get that higher, right?
Yes.
It's for fluency just now.
Yes,
Okay,
got it.
so we're talking about each of the criteria, and then I'll give you an overall score.
Got it.
Okay, so that's that for fluency. Let's move on to your lexical resource, so your vocabulary. I think generally you have great vocabulary. You sound super natural. You don't have any trouble with like using collocations, idiomatic language. You had some great ones in there, especially like you showed a lot of awareness of style. So you did have the correct vocabulary. I mean, yes, you did not understand the word preservation correctly.
Yes.
So that can, kind of mix up all of your answers, because it was a lot about that.
Yes.
However, I think you still had good vocabulary for the rest of what you're talking about, and you didn't let that throw you off, right? You still kept talking, so that's very important. Then for your paraphrasing, I think you did good generally. So you didn't have a lot of repetition in there. Of course, you did have some, but I guess everybody does. It's hard to avoid. Sometimes it's hard to avoid. However, I think when it comes to, for example, your direct answers to the questions, try to paraphrase the questions, especially, right? Not just your own words, but also those of the examiner, to show, I understood what you were saying, and I even know how to phrase it. Exactly. Yeah. That, you'd even know how to phrase it differently. That shows a lot of strength, right? Okay, so overall, I would still give you an 8 for your vocabulary today. Then moving on to your grammar. Okay, so generally you did have a very nice mix of complex structures, more complex tenses in there, right? So you did have all of that. The only thing, again, I think in this case, your speed kind of, was an obstacle for you, because sometimes you are missing some little things. So, for example, you're missing some plural S's, or you put some S's where they didn't belong.
Yes.
So, for example, I think you were saying some popcorns, right? It's popcorn,
Yes.
right? Things like that. Or at some points, for example, you said some part that are still. Well, you either say parts that are, or one part that is, right? So be sure to match the noun and the verb correctly.
Yes.
Other than that, I think your tenses were nice. You definitely had a good mix there. Just pay attention, especially in part 2. I tell that to everybody: stick to the same tense. Don't mix them up, right? You did great there. You didn't really have them go back and forth there, so that's very nice. As I said before, just pay attention to those little things. Those are typically it's articles that go missing somewhere, plural S's that go missing, your third person S. That are those typical mistakes that when you rush into it too much and try to only develop your ideas, those get sometimes lost in the process. So be sure to remember that. Okay, that's why I would give you a 7 for your grammar and accuracy today. Then moving on to your pronunciation, I think you're definitely easy to understand. That I didn't have any problems there. You had very nice intonation. You tried to go, like ups and downs, and had some rhythm and melody in there overall. So that was very nice. One thing I just noticed that I want you to know, to give you a little tip, you say things like wanna and gonna. Be sure in your IELTS test to pronounce them clearly, right? Because they are sometimes considered to be a pronunciation error. So be sure to pronounce them like want to and going to. And the same goes for things like kinda instead of kind of, or cause instead of because, right?
Yes.
That's just a little tip for you to pay attention to that you don't, use the short version. Okay, but I think your pronunciation is great. That's why I gave you an 8 for your pronunciation. That puts you at an overall 7.5 for today. So you see, the requirement of 6 you meet easily. There's no trouble there. I think just your speed stands in your way a little bit. So, slow down. And I think that's going to solve a lot of your other little issues that you have here and there. Yeah. Okay, so do you have any questions?
Yes, the points that you mentioned, all of them, I learned English by mostly watching videos, watching YouTube videos, watching movies. So therefore, that's why I, sometimes say something like gonna and stuff like that. And I record YouTube videos I make YouTube videos. And every time I'm recording, I have to talk fast so I can, put all my thoughts into that video, into the 2-minute, 3-minute video. So that's why I learned and I adapted to talking very fast. So that's something that I have to really focus on when I'm in the IELTS exam, talk a little bit slow. And those S's that you mentioned are something that I have a lot of trouble with every time I'm recording. I see sometimes because I'm thinking about it, but when I'm talking too fast, I think I put the S for the popcorn or the still, and yet I haven't. So I have to go back and record these things. These are the things that I think really are bothering me from the exam, from the score. And thanks for the tips. I make sure to have everything you said practiced before my 4 days that I have. And if I practice those, and if I talk slow, pronunciation good, don't put the prolo S's, do you think I can achieve an 8?
So generally it always, every examiner is different, right?
Yes.
You can never really predict how it's going to be, but we do try to give as realistic a score as possible, right? We don't want to give you false hopes or anything. So I would stay for now, you're definitely a 7.5. And I think, you do have the skills to do so. Be confident about it. And then you might get to an 8. I cannot predict that, definitely. Okay. But it always depends on the examiner and maybe even what form you're in that day, right? So each day is different. You never know what's going to happen. Never know what questions you're going to get. Maybe there's something that you're definitely not familiar with and you're meeting some difficulties there. So you can't really predict, but I think as long as you stick to practicing as good as you do, you're definitely bound to have a high band score.
And my last question is accent important? Like
No.
because you know how Persians talk, like, let's go and do this and do that. I want to know if these are important or not. But if you talk slow, you can make more of that accent.
You're not the evaluation is not based on your accent. It doesn't matter as long as you have a clear pronunciation that doesn't cause any misunderstandings, and as long as you're easy to understand throughout, right? Your accent does not matter in the whole thing.
Got it. I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So what do you think of the test? Was it useful to you?
Yes, the test was really useful. I mean, I had more confidence than I thought I could have gotten more, but now that I've seen my score, it gives me something to practice for and something to work for in that 4 days that I have. It really was helpful. I can now completely know what my mistakes are. Practice a little bit and speaking slower. That would help a lot.
Yes, I think so. Okay, great. So do you mind if we share this video on our YouTube channel?
No worries. No, it's okay. Yeah, I've seen your YouTube. That's where I, found you. I got familiar with you.
Okay, perfect. That's very good to hear. Okay, great. So if there is nothing else, we can say goodbye for today. I wish you best of luck for your test and take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
In this course, you will have a series of educational videos in which you will learn each and every tip you will need in specific details for both general and academic modules.
Next question type is double question or
Attached to each video, you will have the PDF files for each question type, including the paragraph structure, the expressions, and the techniques you can apply, which have all been taught in the videos. To make sure that you learn everything properly, in each video we will write an essay, a letter, or a report by using the tips that you have learned. Moreover, something to help you in this section is the different question samples we have put for you to write your own writing about. This isn't everything. We strongly recommend you to use our writing correction services as well, so that our examiner can give you a written and video feedback and make sure you're ready for the real test. Join us to become our next successful candidate.